Welcome to Flipping Tables, where we bring all of our religious thinking to Jesus, who flips the table for his upside-down kingdom. I'm Julie Sexton, and I'll be your host. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 2. We just started a new series, The Way of the Kingdom of Heaven, which is a study of Matthew. In this episode, Twila and I are going to be talking about the family tree of Jesus. We're excited to be together and to have you at the table with us. And I know every Bible reader loves a Bible genealogy with lots of hard to pronounce names, right? No. I say that with a lot of sarcasm because this is the place where Bible reading plans begin to unravel. And I can say this because I used to be one of the people who failed miserably at Bible reading plans. And I think it's fair to say that it was usually the genealogies that took me out. When you're trying to read that and pronounce those names, and I remember doing it with my daughters, and they would just, they were not into it. And I was struggling. And with all of that said, I think you're going to love this conversation. And my first tip when you come to a genealogy is to approach it with curiosity. Who are these people? And we're going to do that today. We are going to be getting to know some of the people who make up the family tree of Jesus. And I believe that this will help all of us to feel seen by Jesus, because Jesus, he really can personally relate to our broken families. There's nothing in our stories that's too big for him to redeem. He understands our messy lives. He can relate to our scandals, our trauma, our grief, and our brokenness. He gets it. By looking at the family line that he chose to be his biological family, we'll learn just what a table-flipping plan that really was. And my prayer, and Twila's prayer, is that we will be able to look at our families and other people's families through a much more compassionate, understanding lens. Twila, it is so good to have you at the table.
It is so good to be here. It's been a minute. I literally was thinking about it on the way here, and I'm like, when was the last time we did a podcast? I don't know.
I don't either.
I honestly don't know. So it is so good to be with you, and I'm so jazzed that you invited me to this conversation.
Yeah, well, I'm jazzed that when you opened up your Bible and you said, look at Matthew, do you think I love Matthew? And it's all highlighted and written up. And I was like, I think he might be your Bible boyfriend.
I don't know.
I don't know. Don't tell Peter.
Don't tell Peter.
But, yeah.
It's going to be a good conversation. I've really been looking forward to it, so.
Yeah. So do you have any life updates since it's been a while since you've been here at the table?
I mean, nothing that any of your listeners would probably really care about. Just still, trucking along.
People care about you, Twila.
I know. Well, gosh, have I been here since Finn got baptized?
No.
Okay,
I don't think
prayed
so.
that into existence.
Absolutely. That's a big deal this year.
Finn got baptized. That was really exciting in our family and just kind of in the journey of raising kids. Yeah, I don't know. We survived Disney a couple weeks ago. That's a feat, right?
That is a feat.
No, it was a really fun trip. So just, I've stayed busy professionally, and it's been really fulfilling. God has answered some prayers there because, I was kind of praying some prayers about God, make me excited about some of the things that I'm doing that weren't exciting at the time. And I was just talking to somebody today at lunch, he is so faithful. He answered those prayers. And so I've been having a lot of fun with my paycheck job, and yeah. You and I have some fun on the horizon. We've got a fun trip coming up in January. I'm looking forward to that, and that's it.
I'm excited about that too.
I know.
That's
we should create a bonus episode or some kind of special premium. If you want to know where Julie and Twila are going,
I don't think anyone cares what we're going to do. We care. Hopefully they care because they like us.
They might want to go. I don't know. Anyway, yes.
So Matthew is... he is really, it's an interesting gospel. It's a fun read for me. It's information, and this genealogy just really excites me. And again, I don't think a lot of people are excited about genealogies, but this one we should be excited about.
When you said that, I was like, that so resonates, because that used to be the part that I would skip over. I'd be like, oh, the names. And then I think it was probably doing the Bible recap, honestly. the first time that somebody was really like, hey, if it's there, like it's there for a reason. And that's when I really started to pause and read the genealogies and go like, who are these people? Oh, wait a second. These people? And so, yeah, when I opened up this morning to prepare for our time together, I got excited, and even excited about the notes that I wrote into my margins just about this specific passage, that we're going to be dissecting.
I think one of the things that helped me get past tripping over the genealogies was when I started listening to the Bible.
Right. Just let somebody else say the hard names.
Let somebody else pronounce all the hard names. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to David Platt earlier in the year. He did a secret church on Matthew. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he said when he read through the genealogy, he said, just read it like you own it. Because nobody else in the room knows how to pronounce the names either. He said, so just blaze through it like you know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly. And so that's a pro tip from David Platt, and I think it's a good one.
Stick that in my cap.
Matthew is writing primarily to a Jewish audience, so his aim with the genealogy is to prove that Jesus is the son of David and the son of Abraham. And he makes this clear from verse 1. This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. And I do think it's interesting that Matthew begins with a genealogy because Mark, who wrote the first gospel, doesn't include one. And pretty much everything that Mark included, Matthew also includes. But Matthew takes this writing liberty, right? He took what Mark wrote, he reorganized it, he added content that would accomplish his aim and connect with his target audience. And the genealogy makes Matthew a good choice to bridge the Old and the New Testaments, right? So Matthew isn't the only one of the gospel writers to include a genealogy of Jesus. Luke includes one, and it's a little different than Matthew's. If you kind of go to Luke 4 and you lay them side by side, you'll see some differences. And the simple explanation is that Luke is recording Mary's genealogy, and some people say Luke was proving the legal line while Matthew was proving the royal line. And I'm going to get a little more into that in the Table 2 email that goes out after this episode. So to a Jewish audience, Matthew is connecting Jesus to David and Abraham. And if he can't do that, he's lost them before he even gets started. This is critical to his mission and to who he is primarily talking to. So let's start talking about the son of David. And that immediately takes me back to 2 Samuel 7. And this is where God established an eternal covenant with David. David wanted to build a house for God. He wanted to build the temple. And God said, nope, that's not your job. But it's going to be something that your son is going to get to do. So what God does in this key chapter in the Bible is establish a covenant with David, saying that David's throne would be established forever in what we refer to as the Davidic covenant. And I love this because David was asking to build a house for the Lord, but the Lord says, no, I'm going to build a house for you. And then in verse 16 of that chapter, a really important verse says, your house and your kingdom will be established forever. So that's why it's a really big deal that we connect Jesus to David. Mm-hmm. And then you have to connect Jesus to Abraham, because when I read son of Abraham and I think about Abraham, I am immediately transported back to Genesis chapter 12, another key chapter in the Bible. And this is where the Lord called Abram to leave his family's household. He was at that time, he was living in Haran, but he was originally from Ur of the Chaldeans, and he called him to go to the land of Canaan. And when he got to Canaan, the Lord would make a covenant with him in Genesis 15, which is a really again, another key chapter in the scripture. And later in Genesis 17, he reaffirmed that covenant with the addition of the covenant of circumcision. But in Genesis 12, the Lord made a promise to Abraham that he would make him into a great nation, and all the peoples on the earth would be blessed through him. And you get that just looking at those first 3 verses in Genesis 12. And the genealogy of Jesus, it tracks through these promises and these covenants. This is so important to the Jewish audience, and it's important to us. The Lord may have started with the Jewish nation of Israel, but he always had us in view. That's what that little phrase at the end of verse 3 in Genesis 12 means. All the peoples and nations will be blessed through you. And later, I think it's in Genesis 17 is when he says, not only are you going to be a great nation, Abraham, but other nations are going to come for you too. So it's just, he always keeps expanding out on the covenant. Well, this is what makes the genealogy clear, that the Gentiles were always going to be a part of the family tree of Jesus. That's good news for us, right?
Great news.
Great news for us at the table, because Jesus is the Savior of all the peoples on the face of the earth. And this means that the Lord is not exclusive. Rather, he's inclusive. And so, Twila, I want to park here for just a few minutes, and let's just talk about God being inclusive and a covenant-keeping God. And how does that encourage you and strengthen your faith?
That was, this morning I was really spending some time just kind of looking at this and preparing. And that is the thing that I love the most, I think, about this, is that it shows me just through the genealogy, like, women are named, so we are important. Like, we have dignity in his eyes and we matter. And they don't hide any family secrets. So messy families, you know what? We're included too, because most of us are probably messy when we're really honest. And so, we have a seat at this table and we're included. And then Gentiles are included because we have multiple people in this genealogy that are Gentiles. And so that says, this is, quote unquote, the outsiders are also insiders.
Right.
So I think all of those things are just so encouraging. The other thing that I was kind of thinking through was a lot of this breaks like norm or tradition, in the sense of usually you would think a firstborn would have certain promises or things, bestowed upon them. And some of these people are not firstborns,
a lot of table flipping,
right? A lot of table flipping. So, God is not one who follows the norms or the expectations. He will fulfill his way through whoever and whatever he needs, and everyone is invited to this. Messy people, women, outsiders. We all are included. And so, I just, this morning, that was what I was just really meditating on and just, delighting in.
We usually think of Luke because his target audience was Gentiles and specifically outsiders. And he really spotlights women. He goes from men to women, kind of there's a pattern in his gospel.
Right.
And then Matthew, who's writing really to Jews, believing Jews and Jews who were kind of seeking and thinking about, was Jesus really the Messiah? Do we really want to go on board with him? But Matthew drops all of these names and these unexpected twists in his genealogy because he's very methodic about the way he puts it together. And I love that. And I also just really love, and what really strengthens my faith is that God is a covenant-keeping God. God makes promises and God keeps them. And it doesn't go necessarily the way that they planned, the way that they expected it to go. I mean, I think when Abraham was probably 75 years old and God said he was going to build a nation, he expected to have a kid pretty quick.
Right.
He didn't expect to have to wait 25 years to have a son. And so I think sometimes maybe I've thought God was going to do something a certain way, and then it just doesn't turn out that way.
Yeah.
And so he knows what he's doing.
Right.
And he knows how he's going to fit all the pieces together.
Exactly.
And that's really encouraging and really strengthens us.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mentioned Abraham becoming a father at 100 years old, but the thing about this genealogy is, if we look at verse 2, Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. And then we skip to the very end of the genealogy, verse 16, where it says, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah. And the thing that just like jumped out at me was Sarah was a 91-year-old woman when Isaac was born. Mm-hmm. She was very postmenopausal.
We hope.
100%. Because it had to be, because it needed to be, that there was no way that this child came into being except the Lord intervened on her behalf and reopened her womb. But on the other hand, you've got Mary, a teenage virgin. So these are both two miracles. So it's bookended by two miraculous births, and they're both shocking. And obviously, I think that virgin birth is next level. It's divine. It's just impossible.
Right.
But when I think about these two miracles, I think about how these two miracles impact our salvation. There may not have been a miracle involved in our physical conception or in our first birth, but there certainly is in our second birth, right? Mm-hmm. We've been born of the Spirit, resulting in our being grafted into this spiritual family tree of God, the family tree of Jesus. And when I think about that, that means so much to me, because I have this religious background that was so different than mainstream Christianity. You know, I call it a cult, so I don't even say we were Christians, but I really felt like an outsider. And a common question that I was asked, and these were the three big things that gave it away.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't eat pork, we didn't celebrate Christmas, and we went to church on Saturday. That was our Sabbath instead of Sunday. And so people were always asking me, are you Jewish? And so I know that when I read and think about how I've been spiritually grafted into the family of Jesus, that just hits really differently, maybe than some people, because I've just been formed as an outsider.
Yeah.
And never just really felt like I fit or belonged in the family of God. But, you know, a genealogy like this encourages me so much.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
So let's talk a little bit about this first section, and that's really all we're going to unpack on the podcast today. So in this first section of the genealogy, Matthew does these table flipping things that we're already talking about in these first verses. He lists some women. He specifically lists a Canaanite woman, a prostitute from Jericho, and a Moabite woman. So you want to read down 3 through, 6?
Yes, and let's all be inspired by the grace that David Platt has called us to in the naming. All right, with verse 3. Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. Perez, the father of Hezron. Hezron, the father of Ram. Ram, the father of Amminadab. Amminadab, the father of Nahshon. Nahshon, the father of Salmon. Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife.
So technically 4 women listed, but he doesn't call...
She doesn't get named, but yes.
Doesn't...
It's a lot to unpack even in that.
So much to unpack there. So Tamar, Rahab, and Ruth, they're all Gentiles. They're all outsiders being brought near. I love all 3 of these women. I love their stories, but I think the one that I want to just linger in is Tamar's story.
Okay.
So Tamar's story is told in Genesis 38. After Judah and his brothers sold Joseph into slavery, he couldn't handle being in his father's household anymore. His father's grief and probably his own guilt for the role that he played in selling Joseph into slavery. Judah moved away from his family, and he got a Canaanite wife, and he had 3 sons. And that's kind of the setup and a little bit of the background. And Twila, I want you to read just like 6 through 11.
You got it. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the child wouldn't be his. So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's household until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought he may die too, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's household.
It's just so messy.
It's so messy.
This is such a... It's pretty scandalous.
Yeah.
There's some shocking details
Yep.
in this. We have no idea any of the backstory about except he did wicked things. And the Lord put him to death.
Yeah.
And then I just think what the brother did was just disgusting and despicable, just using her.
Yeah.
So what's going on in your heart when you read that?
Oh, man. Well, I think that it reinforces just the grief in Judah's life, right? Like, even though his kids were punks here,
Yeah.
I mean, it's still awful. He lost 2 of his sons. I can have compassion for his fear that he was probably feeling with this youngest son. I look at Tamar, and I have compassion for her because I see this woman who is, continually, being disappointed and is grieving and is feeling, brushed to the side. And I wonder, what was going through her head? Was she thinking like, gosh, is it me? Am I,
Right. I wondered that too.
I don't know. And then just, her having to go back to her father's house and hope that this all comes through, because I think we've talked about before, being a widow without any children, you've just been handed, a
life of poverty,
a sentence for lifelong poverty. And so that was her only hope, was to have a child to, kind of redeem her situation and provide for her. So I just see all the mess, and I see people operating out of fear and guilt and shame and all the things.
Yeah, the grief is really what just really stood out to me. And I would be surprised if anyone reads this and just that doesn't just overwhelm them. I mean, he's lost 2 sons. He's scared of losing his 3rd son. And then what we're going to find out next that happens in the story is that his wife is going to die.
Right.
And that is a lot for anyone. And then you add that on top of the guilt that he has about his role in what happened to his brother Joseph.
Yeah.
And I mean, he essentially knew that he had broken their father's heart. Joseph was the favorite, and that's why they hated him and why they conspired against him. And he couldn't handle it. And as he's trying to run from that problem, he comes into this situation that just begins to unfold. Like, he got married. He's like, okay, this is going to be good. And then it just keeps spiraling. And I think what the next part of the story reveals, if we kept reading, is that we would just think about Tamar, and I think you hit on it a little bit. She's like a woman who's been shunned. She's been forced to live in widowhood. And I think she had to wonder, was it my fault?
Right. Like, am I cursed? Am I bringing this upon?
Yeah. Am I cursed? Because that's how I'm being treated.
Right.
And he's basically now depriving her of motherhood. He's depriving her of status and security. Because without a kid, without a family, that was her situation.
Yeah.
And she probably wasn't really wanted back in her father's household, because she's kind of probably going to be a burden to them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really, really messy. And when you keep reading in Genesis 38 and you get to this place where she sees that Shelah is of age And she's not been given to him. And so she takes matters into her own hands. And that's what desperate people do. So, it's hard. So she learns that Judah is going to be traveling. He's shearing his sheep. And so what does she do? She disguised herself as a prostitute. And she positions herself beside the road where he is going to encounter her. And he's just lost his wife. And so he solicits her. He falls into her trap, right? And she's like negotiating like what he's going to pay for the services. And he gives her his signet, his cord, and his staff, which is really the way, it's like his ID.
Right.
Like, this is who I am. This is very distinct.
Major identifiers.
Major identifier. Like, it would be like us giving our passport to someone, probably. Right. And he's promised that he will send her a lamb, and that will be her payment, and then she'll return these items. He sends a friend to deliver the lamb. She's no longer there because she takes off her...
Newsflash, that's not her daytime job or her nighttime job.
That is not her job, actually. This was sounds like a one-time
one-off.
gig. A one-time gig for her. And she goes back, puts her widow's clothes on, goes home. And so, like, his friend can't deliver the lamb, and he doesn't get his stuff back. And I think he says something like, well, she can have a good laugh about this.
Right.
And like, he's just pretty hopeless about getting his stuff back. So later he learns that she's pregnant, and Judah has the power to put her to death. So for prostitution, he's kind of got all the power. He's holding all the cards in the situation. And when it says that she is being led out because she's going to be burned to death, that's like the penalty. And when I read that, I picture her like a lamb being led to slaughter. So we didn't read all of that, but I'm going to jump into the story at verse 25 and have you read a couple of verses.
Okay. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. I am pregnant by the man who owns these, she said. And she added, see if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are. Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Sheila, and he did not sleep with her again.
I like how you put that emphasis there, because it's like he's caught.
Yeah.
And I love his humility, that he just owns it.
Right.
She's more righteous than I am. And I think that compounded all the guilt that was he was already carrying in his life. And this, I think it just all came to the surface.
Yeah.
And so Tamar, albeit in a deceptive way, worked to secure justice for herself in this patriarchal society because no one was helping her. She was treated like property to be disposed of at will. And even the act of portraying herself as a prostitute, I felt like was her just essentially saying, well, this is pretty much how everyone sees me anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any worth. I don't have any value. I'm not treasured. And Judah, I think, like, there's so much redemption at work in both of them in this pregnancy. This pregnancy is going to be the blessing of her life. Yeah. And it's going to turn her life around. It's going to give her the security that she needed. She's going to have purpose. She's going to be a mother. And then for Judah, it's a turning point for him too. Because I think how freeing that was for him to make that confession, how liberating. And I think it's a real turning point in Judah's life too. And the Lord double blessed her. He gave her twins.
Yeah.
And their birth story is incredible because every part of this story is really incredible.
It is.
And I feel like we're just not even doing it justice because it's so good. But I want you to read about the birth.
Sure. Okay. It says, when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it onto his wrist and said, this one came out first. But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out, and she said, "So this is how you have broken out." And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was named Zerah.
I mean, that's so wild.
It's like a whole, like...
the whole thing. I'm like, how does one baby get an arm, like, through the birth canal, then pull it back?
Sounds like an awful experience for this poor lady.
It sounds horrible.
Poor Tamar.
It really does sound horrible. But then putting the scarlet thread on the wrist of the one who was appearing to be the firstborn, and then it flips.
Yep.
And Perez, his name literally means breaking out.
Yeah.
And I love this because in the middle of this mess with the birth of the twins of Tamar, it's like she was breaking out of despair. And Judah was breaking out of his grief as a part of, I'm sure being a father made him happy again.
Yeah.
But I also just think, again, this is a turning point in his life. And he's getting a new start, and apparently goes like, I'm going to be celibate now. And just has when he re-enters and rejoins his family, because he does go back, I mean, the whole story becomes different. I think what's interesting about, well, there's so much that's interesting, but if you look back in the genealogy, Perez is not the only one listed. Both of the boys are listed. Can you read that?
In verse 3, it said, "And Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar." And then it goes on to say, "And Perez, the father of Hezron, and Hezron, the father of Ram."
I'm so intrigued that
They both got named.
there. And that scarlet thread, even though he's not the firstborn, but
Right.
we know that there's a scarlet thread in Scripture. And it makes me also think about Rahab.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing, and I don't think you note this in here, and if I get this wrong, correct me, but it is after all this happens that Judah gets the messianic prophecy, right? That comes after this?
It does.
So
the blessing.
I think, yeah. And so I even think, as I was reading through it this morning and I was thinking through all of this, and I'm like, and after all this happened, he gets, I mean, like, what a redeeming thing for him after all the grief and all of the scandal in his life and like messing up, and that after all that he had been through and the things that he'd been connected to that were certainly not pleasing to God would still be like, and hey, and just how beautiful that is. Like, that redemption in Judah's story also kind of was like speaking to me this morning.
Well, it's a significant part. And yeah, you're right. I didn't put it in the notes, but when Jacob is blessing all 12 of his sons,
right,
and he speaks over Judah in Genesis 49, he says, "You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down, like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations shall be his."
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up and made me read it, because that's the promise.
Right.
He got the royal line.
Right.
It's a huge reversal in his life. He wasn't the firstborn son.
Right.
He was the
I noticed that. I was like, he's not the firstborn.
No.
But also, he's been through all this crud. And then he gets that. I thought of that again as we were talking, and you're talking about, this is a turning point in his life. So I'm sorry if we derailed the direction, but it was really prominent to me this morning as I was studying it. So
no, I'm glad. I think the Lord wanted us to bring it out, and it is such an important part of the story. And I mean, I loved what I just read.
Right? So good.
This part about the ruler's staff will not depart until the one who it belongs to comes, and the nations shall be his. So again, that's just that whole big picture.
Yeah.
Like, Judah, you're not going to just have the king that has been promised that we're waiting for. He's not just for Israel, he's for all the nations.
Yeah.
It's just huge. It's just big. It's just, love it. And something that we can't talk about Ruth, but Ruth's story is incredible.
Right.
And Tamar is mentioned in Ruth's story. And it's because in Ruth 4, when Ruth gives birth, the blessing that is declared over her in Ruth 4:12 says, through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. And you're just connecting all of these names and all of these messy things. Yeah. And I'm sure Naomi explained to her daughter-in-law Ruth, like, let me just tell you about Tamar.
Right.
Because you feel like an outsider being brought into this family. You're a Moabite woman, and her story was, there's so much devastation and grief in that that got her to that place.
Yeah.
I mean, the Moabite women, I'm just, reading through the Bible again, and I just read about in Numbers where the Moabite women had, at one time, they led Israel into sexual immorality in Numbers. And I just read that this week, and then what a contrast Ruth was, because Ruth was devoted in her marriage, but then she lost her husband. He died. And she transferred that loyalty that she had for her mother-in-law, Naomi, and included the Lord. And there's that famous verse in Ruth 1:16 where she says to her mother-in-law, where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay, and your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Like, she was making a devoted commitment to the Lord. And I just love how these stories are just interwoven together. And we don't even get to talk about Rahab.
Yeah. There's so much good. I mean, like, you could probably spend weeks just on this, one little passage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of genealogy.
I would just encourage people to just deep dive it and get really into it. But a few minutes ago, when I mentioned that Tamar was being led like a lamb to slaughter, when I said that, I'm thinking about Jesus.
Right.
And when I think about Ruth being the grandmother to a shepherd named David, who would then go from being a shepherd to the king, and then he receives that covenant, the Davidic covenant, that he would have this descendant. And we can tie that back to what we read in Genesis 49 to Judah. And all of this picture, it just comes, I am just filled with awe and wonder over all of this.
Yeah. What a master weaver of stories God is from the very beginning of time, and even today is still weaving these stories through our lives.
And I love how you're calling it a weaver, because we get, like I said at the very beginning of the episode, we get to a genealogy and we start to unravel. And the genealogy is where we should just dive right
where we
in.
Can find ourselves.
It is where we find ourselves in the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
As women, we find ourselves in the genealogy.
For sure.
And we look at this and we're like, wow.
Yeah.
And men, when men read this genealogy and they see these men who were not perfect.
Right.
Who were deeply, deeply flawed.
Yeah.
Committing grievous sin like David would do. I mean, I just think about myself, and I make plans that fall apart, and I have very little control over anything in my family. And I just think about how we create pictures of what the ideal family is supposed to look like in our minds. And then because of social media, we look at these in appearance only perfect families on Instagram. And, it's just kind of devastating to our hearts.
Yeah.
Our hearts really kind of sink. But when I go to a genealogy like this, the genealogy of Jesus that we've barely scratched the surface on, I mean, I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
just by as little as we've talked about it today, I'm encouraged and I'm strengthened. And this does something for me, and I know it does for you too, that social media can never do.
Yep.
It just fills us with hope.
Yeah.
This genealogy, it wasn't beautiful when it was happening. It was ugly. It was heartbreaking. It was devastating. These people were caught up in sin that led to scandals. I mean, come on. David had an affair with Uriah's wife. Uriah was one of his mighty men, one of his close friends. He conceived a child with this woman, and then he had Uriah murdered to try to cover it up. And sometimes people call it an affair. It was an affair. That's not accurate. Bathsheba, she had no say in this matter. It was more of an assault than anything. And I know that's hard because we love David. But she was sent for by the king, and she didn't have the liberty to say no.
No.
And he was the king. And it's scandalous. This king that we've been anticipating and promised, but that king let us down because all
kings will let us down.
All authorities and rulers in this world. They let us down.
Yeah.
But not Jesus.
No.
And so I say all this to remind us, Jesus understands our broken families. Jesus understands it even when we're the ones doing or has done the breaking. And he doesn't turn away from us. What does he do? He invites us to come and sit at his table and tell him our stories. And he tells us his story through the word of God. And he knows how to help us to find the good way forward so that we can walk with him in the good way. I love that.
That's some good news right there, friend.
It is some very good news.
I get to ask a question I haven't asked in a long time. Let's talk about bright spots.
Oh, a bright spot. Oh, man,
Yeah.
I have a good one.
You go.
Okay,
You go first.
so this past Sunday, my Sunday school co-teacher and I, Gary, we got to baptize one of our young adults.
Yes, you told me that was going to happen.
And it was just so beautiful. It was so sweet. I got really choked up doing it.
Yeah.
She's just precious.
That's so good.
It is good.
That's really exciting.
And yeah, Sunday was a great day. I did that, and then I did some stuff with my own daughters, just spent the afternoon with them, small town, kind of
Good.
walking around, looking at fall stuff. It was just a fun day. It was a
What
good,
a Hallmark
good-
weekend.
It really was. It was the thing that, dreams are made of, right?
Right.
Good family times, seeing people come into the family of God.
Yeah.
What could be better?
That's awesome.
What do you got?
Well, actually, you were there for my bright spot. What in the moment did not feel like a bright spot. It felt like a very dark spot. You got to witness my little 6-year-old just completely crashing out at that Friday night service over what he called community.
I love it. I love that this is your bright spot.
I'm literally going to adopt the name community. He was referring to the little communion cup. And it was late for him. It'd been a long week and day, and probably not the most fun thing in the world for a 6-year-old to be at like a worship and prayer service, right, for 2 hours. He's crashing out. I want the community. I want the community. Can I have the community? When are we going to have the community? And I'm like, it's communion. But number one, I love that he called it community because that is what communion is for us. But it's opened up some conversations for us. So I think you may have overheard me tell him, like, we can take the cup home. You can't have community yet, but we can take it home and it'll be a reminder for us to talk about it. We can start talking about it. Well, I forgot all about it after that. And so I think it was probably the next night I'm tucking him in and stuff, and we're talking, and he goes, Mom, we never talked about the community.
Oh, love him.
So we got out the little Jesus Storybook Bible, and I got out, the story of the Last Supper, and we started to begin our dialogue around what communion is and what it represents. And he really didn't have any idea. Like he was not able to articulate it when I was asking, what do you think it is? And so it started those conversations, and he still wants to know when he's going to get to have some community. And I said, well, buddy, we've got some stuff that we've got to work through here. But yeah, so it started this sweet little season of beginning to explain to him, what it is to follow Jesus and give our life to him, and then how we start to have community.
I just love it. I love it so much. Is he 6?
Yeah, he'll be 7 in December. So
yeah, I think both of my girls were baptized when they were 7.
yeah.
So, well, we're just going to pray little Theo across the line. Going to pray him into the family tree of Jesus. Friends, I hope you have loved this conversation about the family tree of Jesus. And what it does is it reflects the very reason that we needed a Savior. Mm-hmm. Jesus welcomes everyone from every kind of background into his family. And like Twila said, this is good news. So dig in to this genealogy. And if you don't already subscribe to the Flipping Tables newsletter, I will encourage you to do that in the show notes. And we'll go a little bit deeper into the family tree in that resource. And until then, the next time we get together, I would like to encourage you to keep following the table flipper and leave the table flipping to Jesus.